You've read the story of Jesse James, of how he lived and how he died. If you're still in need of something to read, here's the story of Bonnie and Clyde. Now, Bonnie and Clyde are the Barrow gang. I'm sure you all have read how they rob and steal, and those who squeal are usually found dying or dead.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Diary, in which we take a light-hearted look at a serious subject. Every 2 weeks we look back through the stories of true crime to find an event that took place on this week in history. I'm your host Mark DeCano, and with me as always are my friends Jed Lester.
Hello.
And Rue Turner.
Hello.
Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you can, and if you can't, you can always email us to stuff@truecrimediary.co.uk. And in appreciation of every 5-star review, we'll give you a shout out on a future episode. So the date we're looking at this week is the 23rd of May, and in 1934, a Ford V8 rumbled along a Louisiana State Highway 154 straight into the firing line of a hidden posse. The ambushers fired between 130 and 160 rounds into the car, killing the occupants instantly and ending the criminal careers of Bonnie and Clyde.
So they got killed.
Yes, yeah, very. I'm glad that's what you took away from that.
How many's a round? A bullet?
A round is a bullet.
Right, so a load of bullets.
Rounds of ammunition. Many bullets.
Despite it being round, it is quite precise. It's
Is
a
it?
single...
It's a round number, one.
I'm gonna say, when you say Bonnie and Clyde, I'm gonna say the first thing that comes into my mind, and then Rue's gonna say the first thing. So I'll start. Bonnie and Clyde. Right, go on, Rue.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde.
Therein lies the difference between me and him. I was singing good old Georgie Fame. That wasn't anything to do with the film, was it? Was it?
No.
Was Georgie Fame's one?
At the same time, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
67.
Yeah.
I think it's just as these things happen, there's
It was a little
someone mentions
wave
something
of.
and there's a little wave. Yeah, exactly.
So presumably the Serge Gainsbourg one was on the same wave, was it?
Yeah, presumably, yeah. They're both 67. There's a couple
Gainsbourg
of
and
them.
Brigitte Bardot.
Bardot.
It couldn't have been more French by their inability to pronounce the word Bonnie. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, you'd have thought it might have been like Bernie Saunders and Clyde.
Bernie.
Bernie and Clyde.
It's that new orangutan duo.
Right turn, Clyde.
Anyways, were you going to tell us some
So
information?
weekend at Bernie's.
This has gone out of control already. Okay, let me tell you about who Bonnie and Clyde are.
Please
or were.
do.
So Clyde Chestnut Barrow.
Good name.
He was born in 1909. He was apparently quite a talented musician. He played guitar and saxophone. He was the fifth of 7 human children.
Oh yeah.
Poor farmer family out of Texas. He was first arrested at 17 for failing to return a rental car on time.
Right.
On time or at all? Because being late isn't something to be arrested for.
Not really.
Well, I don't know how long they were going to wait to see if he was ever going
Failure
to
to return, I think, that's tantamount to
They haven't
theft.
returned it on time, and they may never return it at all.
Excuse me,
and
Sonny,
they
you're
are-
20 minutes after.
Yeah, well, I once never returned to a library because I lost the library. I was afraid of not going.
What a great comparison.
That's a serious incident.
You're virtually on the same
began-
level as Bonnie. No, what was his name again? Clyde
Barrow.
Chestnut.
Chestnut Barrow.
Library cards, car, same thing.
Yeah.
Our criminal careers began in much the same way.
It's just a gateway crime.
Yeah, in the scheme of things, yeah.
Probably been stealing since he could crawl.
So he was, for some reason, arrested for essentially nicking a car. But
Nicking a car.
he started young. Is what? Are you going to give us a
started
list
young.
of
I'm going
bad
to list
things?
everything he did. No.
List it.
No.
Okay.
I will tell you that after the car incident, he was arrested with his brother Marvin for stealing turkeys.
Very good. Around Christmas?
Wait a minute. Somebody whose surname is Chestnut Barrow stole some turkeys at Christmas.
Yeah.
Very good. By the way, his musical instruments, did he play the violin?
No. He played
It's annoying, isn't it?
guitar and sax.
Yeah. I know guitar case would work. In fact, saxophone case would work as well, wouldn't it, for a gun?
Wait, I don't think you'll get a Thompson in there. It's the right period. Wrong shape instrument case.
That's what I'm saying. He should have taken up the violin.
Should take up the violin.
Yeah.
Well, his gun of preference was a BAR, not a Thompson. A Browning automatic rifle.
Is that good?
Which is a lot bigger than a Thompson.
Yeah.
Is that
it's a big old rifle.
Is that a single fire thing?
But it's an automatic, so you fires a magazine.
And it's hard to say the style of bullet it takes without referring to Tom Waits here. Because it's a 30-06.
I don't know that song. What is it? A Tom Waits song about about bullets?
Well, as with all Tom Waits songs, they're about somebody doing some random things in a random place, having had a hard life. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, Bonnie Elizabeth Parker, she was born the following year, 1910. Now, something I didn't know about her was that she was married the whole time that she was with Clyde Barrow, not to him.
Okay, didn't know that.
She was married to a guy named Roy Thornton. They got married in 1926, just before her 60th
Bonnie
birthday.
and Roy. Right, Roo, do yours.
Bonnie and Roy.
That's better, actually. That's much better, isn't it? Bonnie and Roy. They kind of go together more, better. Right, okay, Roy. Did he know anything about it?
Bernie and Roy.
Unsurprisingly, he was a criminal.
I was certain he was no good the moment I first laid eyes on him.
I was hoping you were going to say he was a plumber and he knew nothing. He carried on at work knowing nothing about it. But...
No, he was a criminal. He, although they got married, they were together for like 2 years or so. But he was away a lot of the time, basically doing crime.
Doing crimes. Yep.
Yeah. They actually split in 1929, but they stayed married. So she moved back with her mother, and she worked as a waitress in a restaurant. But
do you know her mother's name?
Emma.
Bonnie and Emma. It's not as good.
Bonnie and Emma.
I thought you were gonna make the Emma into one word. Anyway,
then it's down. Then it sounds like sounds like a medical procedure nobody wants.
Bonnie's enema.
That's a fine enema.
That's true. Yeah.
A fine enema. A body enema.
It's a brilliant enema. Can't.
So they were married the whole time, and she still had she kept her wedding ring on the whole time.
Was Bonnie and Clyde?
She died with a wedding ring on.
She died with a wedding ring.
Loads of people do that.
Yeah, but not
surely.
Not to the guy that you're not spending your life with. I mean, Clyde was kind of, well, I suppose a partner at the time.
Oh, what do you mean? After she'd obviously had been divorced?
No.
She wasn't divorced. She wasn't.
No,
divorced,
never divorced.
No, she was married the whole time. She died married to Roy Thornton.
So hang on, was Bonnie and Clyde a crime duo, or were they a crime / love duo?
The latter.
All you need is love. John Lennon, smart man, shot in the back, very sad.
Right, okay. But what most people don't know is that she was married to.
But she was married
someone
to
else.
Yes.
That's how deep their criminal ways go. She wasn't even married to him.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of the sexual connotation of the couple added to their story.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, strangely enough, I don't not very au fait with loads of different male-female crime duos. But this, let's go through why we are talking about this, and the main reason is just the kind of love intrigue of a couple doing naughty, criminally things, isn't it? Presumably. Name another
Well, they're like the reference to them, Bonnie and Clyde, as in modern parlance, has become kind of euphemistic for a couple that will
absolutely
do anything for each other in times of difficulty. And I do wonder, like they weren't the first, and I wonder whether during the time, whether they were referred to as the Arro and Bompard of their time, because there's another like duo.
Is that
previous ones from like late 19th century.
Whereabouts?
This is Paris,
America. You can. Hang on. Who was it? Arro and
Bompard.
Arro and Bompard.
Yeah, exactly. Gainsbourg could have sung about that much more fluently.
Well, I know, and yours will now work with that. See, it's much better. So why are we talking about them? Because
it's an episode about
film wasn't made about them.
Yeah.
Well, I know that. Because it was. I mean, American-y crime stuff is just kind of cooler, really, isn't it? And a massive film was made about them. But
yeah, well, I think we know more.
Yeah.
About these guys, and they've had more. Through popular culture and everything, they've had more impact, generally speaking. Plus, this is their crimes took place during the Depression and Prohibition.
Yes, yeah.
But you also had the advent of the telegraph and everything else. So basically, there was nothing for anyone to do except read the papers and
they pretty much became superstars of their time, didn't they?
They were superstars, yeah.
Like really popular, not just well known, but popular and liked.
This year's Miss Bonnie Parker. I'm Clyde Barrow. We rob banks.
They were seen as sticking it to the man, bank robbers and what have you. Although actually they didn't really rob very many banks. They did a few, but mostly they stole from like grocery stores and that. So they weren't sticking it to the man. They were stealing from the little guy.
What, so like
sticking up the grocery man?
Or... Yes, grocery stores and petrol stations.
Meaning what?
Stations.
The money from that establishment, as opposed to.
Yeah, they would rob a gas station. For
Fill
like
up the
$10.
tank. Give me a bag of tomatoes. Make it quick.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, but surely not all the crimes were that lowbrow.
Well, no. They were. They robbed banks, about maybe a dozen, maybe 15 banks.
All right.
In 2 years.
Not many. Not many then.
Not many, but considering they were prolific in their robbery. Mostly it was grocery stores, restaurants, little shops. So they'd steal.
It's probably from town to town to town, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean they went all over the south, and they stole. I think generally they got $5 or $10, which today's money would be about $100, $200.
Right. So not a lot, is
just
it? Really?
For
it's nothing.
Not
it's
a lot.
Pocket money.
Just for everyone, but mainly for me. Where are we talking about in the country?
Well, they originated out of Texas. They went to Missouri, Louisiana, Kentucky, all around the south.
So the kind of middle bit, south, middle.
Yeah. They did spread far and wide, but mostly it's concentrated in that area. The main police forces tasked with looking out for them was Texas and Louisiana.
But essentially, it was a hand-to-mouth criminal career.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Yeah. But because of Prohibition and the Depression, everyone hated the banks and the police.
Right.
So when they go around robbing banks or shooting police officers, everyone's like, yeah, they're folk heroes.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, they weren't. But also, this was an era called the Public Enemy era. So they've got contemporaries. They've got Dillinger, Babyface Nelson, Pretty Boy Floyd, that sort of thing. All of these people are running around at the same time.
Yeah.
It's the gangster era. And all the stories are about the romanticised gangster characters.
In the papers or actual books? There'll be gossip column. Lots of gossip column stuff.
Well, it would be front page news as well.
Yeah.
Even in the...
sure.
even in the respectable papers as well as all the little papers. It would be the main stories. There wasn't a lot else to talk about, and this was quite exciting and sensational,
Yeah.
They died quite young, didn't they? I mean, this shootout was in their early 20s or something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this criminal career really wasn't particularly long. I mean, sort of 5 years, 6 years maybe.
They met in 1930.
Right.
And they died at the beginning of 1934.
Right.
That was it.
But also he was in prison for 2 years of that.
Good grief.
So they're actually only so their spree was only about 20 months.
Spree.
Yeah, that is a spree, I suppose, really, isn't it?
There's a lot of robberies and a lot of murders and a lot of publicity, but it was only.
I would have started with the murders as opposed to the bag of sprouts.
That's mostly police officers, though, isn't it? Not that makes it any better.
Mostly, but not all. And ultimately, they were killing people.
Yeah.
Should probably mention, having said that, Bonnie Parker was married to Roy Thornton and now was the lover of Clyde Barrow.
Yes.
This probably means that she has hybristophilia.
Excuse me, sir. A what?
Which is more commonly known as Bonnie and Clyde syndrome.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's become a medical phrase, is it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's basically it's the name for someone who is
married to someone but murders with someone else.
Well, basically who's aroused or attracted to criminals.
Right.
Usually women.
This is great. I really love this. Excitement, adventure.
Say the word again.
Hybristophilia.
So Stockholm is attracted to your capturer.
Yeah, that's more of a brainwashing thing.
Right, okay. Because it's a syndrome, yes.
It's called a syndrome.
Yeah. You're attracted to people who are bad.
Are bad, and the worse the crime, the more the attraction.
Right. Sorry, I was just going to give the etymology, as it comes from Hebridean, from the Greek, meaning to commit an outrage against someone.
Yeah.
So it's just the love of the outrage.
Exactly. So this is why you get like people on death row who get people who want to marry them.
Yeah.
Yes. That said, what hybristophilication was missing with her actual husband, who was bad, that was there with Clyde? It was worser.
I think the key is that he was there.
Yeah.
Thornton was not around. That's the point.
And she's not even 16. I mean, they died when they were children.
Well, no, she was married at 16. That was 1926.
Yeah, she wasn't yet 16, wasn't she? When she
wasn't. She was just before her 16th birthday.
Yeah.
So when she died, it was 1934.
Yeah. So I mean, these are kids.
So she was about 24. Yeah, 23, 24.
But that sounds a kind of posthumous diagnosis, doesn't it? Or the obviously the Bonnie and Clyde syndrome, or whatever you said, is. But at the time,
yes. I mean, it's retrospective, of course, because she didn't sit down with.
But it's clearly a thing. But judging by the, as you say, death row mass murderers who get loads of women wanting to marry them. Yeah,
that's why girls like bad boys, and some girls like really, really, really bad boys like Bundy and Manson.
Yeah. Sure, yeah.
Anyway, there's a thing.
There's a thing. It's good though. That's good info there, Mark.
Yeah.
Thanks for.
If you're looking for a bad boy, maybe spend a few nights at the Cecil Hotel.
Yeah, definitely. That's quite bad.
Another reason I'm single. So 1930, Barrow went to prison for car theft. He went to the Eastham Prison Farm, which is basically a farm you do hard labour. Think Shawshank. It's a very nasty place to be in prison.
Rock breaking kind of hard labour.
Yeah,
for stealing a car.
For stealing a car, yeah.
It's a bit hard done by, I suppose.
I mean, the prison wasn't nice anyway. Apparently, there was a prison guard who would outright execute prisoners and claim that they were killed trying to escape.
Right.
So, I mean, it was a bad place.
And you could just get away with it.
Yeah.
And when they put you in that cell, when those bars slam home, that's when you know it's for real.
Now, Parker, Bonnie, smuggled him a gun and he managed to escape, but he was caught quite quickly and sent back. And while he was there was another inmate there called Big Ed Crowder, who apparently repeatedly sexually assaulted Clyde.
Ooh.
in the prison.
I take back my giggle.
Yeah, Clyde managed to resolve this by beating him to death with a pipe.
Oh.
It's a fairly final resolution.
Yeah, and he got away with it because another inmate who was already doing life took the blame for it.
Gosh, there's some compassion.
Yeah.
He was happy to do so.
Yeah, because he was in prison for life, and obviously Clyde was a young kid, and they knew he was being assaulted. So,
right.
It's criminal justice, isn't it?
I'm finding it hard to feel any pity for that crime.
Well,
for that victim, I think he had it.
That's because you're not a criminal.
I think he had that coming, and I think he deserved it.
Sweeping generalisation there.
We've all got it coming. But Clyde, he also didn't want to get involved too much in the hard labour, so he had a nice little plan to get out of that. He got another inmate to cut 2 of his toes off with an axe.
What?
Look, I think I'm a bit lazy, but that's not something I'm willing to do in order to be able to be a bit more lazy.
Why would that get him off? Because he would be effectively registered disabled, kind of equivalent.
Basically, yeah, effectively, he would have been hospitalised.
Yeah, don't want none of you 8 toes out here working on.
Yeah, old.
Yeah, it wasn't his little toes either.
I was
going to
say you could. Oh God!
It was a big toe and the one adjacent.
Yow.
I imagine that's his response at the time as well.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Very much like that. And you haven't heard the worst part of it.
What? Oh, hang on. Yep.
Having had his 2 toes cut off with an axe, he was paroled 6 days later.
Right. What? Just purely coincidental.
Yeah, nothing to do with it. Yeah.
Oh,
6 days later, he was let out on parole, possibly because of the influence of his mother, who apparently was quite the enabler. Constantly stood up in his defence. So he managed to he got parole. February 2nd, he was out.
Was that Emma, his mum?
No, that's
or
her
was that
mother.
Bonnie's mum?
That's Bonnie's mum. His mum, she was a right piece of work. That one.
Wrong'un?
She was a wrong'un. There were some that say that his mother was the leader of the gang.
Mm-hmm.
Well, certainly the mastermind.
Cummy Talitha Walker.
Yeah.
Cummy. All right. In that case, everyone be quiet. Cummy and Clyde. See, that works. And so does that. It's an unfortunate name, but it still works. It quite alliteratively fits together, doesn't it?
I think it's interesting that I read that as Cummy.
Yeah, it could be.
Right.
It could be.
It's only got 1 M in it.
Yeah,
that ruins my song.
It's spelt like cumin.
It is. Yeah,
instead of it.
It's probably Cummy. Cummy.
We'll keep it how it is for comedic factors.
Fair enough. So with Clyde out of prison in 1932, they go off and they carry on a series of robberies, again, restaurants, gas stations, shops, stores. Then in March 1932, Bonnie Parker went to jail.
What's in for, sweetheart?
Now, she didn't quite go to the same...
style?
Yeah, not the same experience that Clyde had.
She went to a ladies' jail.
Well, it wasn't prison, it was jail. She was waiting trial. She and Clyde's cellmate, Ralph Fultz, were caught trying to steal guns.
Mm-hmm.
She was in jail for 3 months, but a grand jury failed to indict, and so she was released. But while she was in jail, she wrote a lot of poetry.
Ooh.
As teenagers in hard times do.
Yeah, and those poems are readily available to be read. They were publicised around the time after their deaths. She wrote an interesting one called Outlaws, which is a theorised scene of Clyde meeting Billy the Kid and them having a chat on the road.
Yep.
It's quite nice. And then there's the one called The Trail's End, which everyone is probably aware of. It's become more popularly known as the Ballad of Bonnie and Clyde. Mm-hmm. And it's essentially her predicting their own death.
Remind me when Billy the Kid time
1880s.
Span was... Oh, right. So it was 50 years earlier. Yeah. So it would have been legend back then, especially in the same state.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, they're not bad poems, actually. They're pretty good. Probably why they've stood up. Apart from their obviously infamy, but also they're not terrible.
There once was a man with 8 toes. Is it one begin like that?
I haven't got to that one, but I hope there is. So once she's out, she went back to the gang after her release.
Gang of 2.
No, there was a gang.
Ah, okay.
It wasn't a fixed gang though. People would join and leave. There's a guy named W.D. Jones who was a friend of Clyde's. He joined the gang. He left and then he came back.
He was a slippery character.
There was a guy named Joe Palmer.
W.D.
Yeah. I thought we'd skirt over that, but you hide
confirming
it.
that you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How old was he?
About 40.
Good.
He was well lubricated most of the time. There's Joe Palmer. There was a Ross Dyer. His brother Buck Barrow and his brother's wife Blanche were with the gang for a short time.
They're good names, aren't they? Buck and Blanche. That's a great couple.
Do you want to do the
Buck and Blanche? It didn't really work, does it? It's not as good. You need a 2-syllable one at the front.
And then there was a couple more, Raymond Hamilton and Henry Methvin, who joined later on. So there would be 4 or 5 in the group at any time. So it was a gang.
So interestingly, I've never heard of any of them, and we've only heard of 2 of them, the main love interest.
Obviously, they were the centrepiece. They were the romantic story, and they were always there, whereas the others would come and go. There would be
okay.
With them.
Yeah.
So from June 1932, then that's when people start getting killed. They shot and killed 2 police officers in a car park where they went for a dance. Not the policeman.
Was dancing illegal?
Yeah, it was a secret policeman's ball.
No, it was Bonnie and Clyde and I think Jones went to the dance.
Yep.
And they were there. They were drinking whiskey with Prohibition, obviously. And they were seen by 2 police officers who approached them. And
what are you doing?
There was a short gunfight and the officers were killed.
Wow.
They shot another man named Doyle Johnson while stealing his car.
Hey!
He was not a policeman.
Is that the first civilian death?
Yes, yeah.
Apart from the guy who deserved it in prison.
Yeah. They killed Deputy Malcolm Davis. Weirdly, who Davis had set a trap for a different criminal, and they wandered into it by accident.
Oh.
And they fought their way out, and the deputy was killed. Then there was a big event in March of 1933. So Buck Barrow was released from prison, and he and Blanche joined Parker, Barrow, and Jones at a garage apartment in Joplin, Missouri. Now, it's a garage with a small apartment on top. It's a little stone-built cottage. It's still there. It's an Airbnb, so you can stay.
Oh, cool.
Oh, brilliant.
But the gang there were very noisy. They were drinking heavily. Blanche later said that they were getting a case of beer a day between the group.
Yep.
How many came in a case, though, in those days?
I think 24, does it? Is it or is it 12?
I don't know.
It's 12 or 24.
And if there's no running water, then that's all you're getting to drink.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, they were clearly drunk, so either it was a lot of beer or they were real lightweights.
Yeah.
So they were very loud, very bawdy, very vocal. And so much so that the neighbours complained.
Okay.
Bear in mind that these buildings are spread out. So they're not like banging on the wall. They weren't next door. It's an isolated
They're not neighbours as we would think of them, but...
No, they're neighbours as in...
Other buildings, in the same region.
Oh, right. So they were pretty loud.
The local police turned up thinking, it's probably like some bootleggers or something.
Yeah.
But turns out it wasn't. There was a big gunfight. Detective McGuinness and Constable Harriman were killed. There was a Sergeant Carler. He received a face full of wood splinters when Clyde fired his BAR at an oak tree. And the sergeant was shielding himself with the tree and shot the tree with
That just shows the power of a 30-06 hitting. If it's hitting an oak tree and his face is injured with wood splinters.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Now look what you did. My great-grandfather planted this tree.
But the gang escaped, ultimately, having killed 2 and injured 1. And the police found inside the cottage, they found loads of weapons. They found some of Bonnie Parker's poems. and they found 6 rolls of film.
Ah. This is the roll of film, isn't it? The famous roll of film.
Which they developed. And most of the pictures that you will have seen of like Bonnie posing with a shotgun and what have you,
is theirs.
They were on these undeveloped rolls.
Oh, that's great, isn't it?
Yeah. So the police developed them. They sent them on to the papers. The papers published.
And one of those was
brilliant.
the iconic photo of Bonnie smoking a cigar.
Yeah. One picture. There's one picture of her holding a cigar.
And she never smoked cigars. Hated them.
She never smoked cigars. Yeah. She smoked cigarettes, but never cigars.
She's got her leg up on the bumper.
Yeah.
She's got a gun at her hip.
That's right.
And she's got a cigar. Yeah.
So the one photo of the cigar, and forever thereafter, she's portrayed as a cigar-toting
Right.
gangster's mole.
Gun mole. Yeah.
She does look quite young, I think.
But they were pretty young and quite diminutive as well, weren't they? They were quite...
She looks tiny,
Yeah, they're not
I
very...
think that was a massive car. She's got a foot on.
That'd be a Ford V8.
Really?
Yeah, that's what they always stole, a Ford V8.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, Clyde loved them. He loved them so much that he wrote to Henry Ford to tell him how much he loved the Ford V8.
Wow.
So this is in April 1934. A letter arrived at the Ford Motor Company. It says... Dear sir, while I still have got breath in my lungs, I will tell you what a dandy car you make. I have drove Fords exclusively when I could get away with one. And he signed it, yours truly, Clyde Champion Barrow.
Clyde Champion?
Yeah.
So he's dropped his chestnuts then.
Nice, yeah.
Well, he's old enough now. His chestnuts have dropped.
I believe it's still, the letter is still in the, it's in the archives of the Ford.
Wow.
So Bonnie and Clyde didn't always like to shoot people. They didn't shoot people if they didn't need to, generally speaking. Mostly they like kidnapping people, particularly police officers.
But for kidnapping, you need a ransom. Otherwise, you've just got an unwelcome friend.
It wasn't kidnapping for profit, it was kidnapping for fun.
Oh, right, okay. Passive torture.
Yeah, I mean, in one incident they were pulled over, or police patrolmen tried to pull him over, and they took him at gunpoint, put him in their car, and they just drove around with him. And just drove him around, and then they let him go.
That must be... It must be so frightening for that poor patrolman.
Yeah,
I mean, these are kids that have killed people and held people up. Like, it would be nothing for them to just shoot him and leave him at the roadside.
Do him over.
Yeah. So there's a great story where they kidnapped a young couple in Louisiana, name of Dillard Darby and Sophia Stone. They were trying to steal his car, and they took them with them in the car, and they drove off. And Dillard Darby, it turns out that he was an undertaker, and Bonnie was thought this was very, very funny, and she made jokes about that. One day, pretty soon, he might be working on her.
Oh yeah.
And then they just let him go, and they gave him some money as well to get home, which was normal practice. Sometimes they'd give him clothes and money, or whatever. But basically they would kidnap people, drive them around, probably across the state line, and then just drop them off, and then have to make their way back again. It's very odd behaviour.
Because they used the state line as a criminal tactic. Because of the jurisdiction thing. I was thinking, just when you said that, it suddenly occurred to me, if you kidnap someone in one jurisdiction and then you drop them off in another jurisdiction, have you committed a crime in the drop-off zone?
No.
Because I know you committed the kidnap in one place, but as soon as you pass that boundary, you're still kidnapping them. There's still a kidnapping taking place.
So therefore,
but if you've crossed the line, that would be a federal crime then, wouldn't it? Because you've crossed state line.
Right.
Before that would have been a local.
Because they used to drive along the state lines to take advantage of the differences in jurisdictions.
Yeah, but that would be for robbery.
Right. Okay. How does that
work?
Kidnapping
would be because kidnapping is a federal.
Okay. Right.
Crime and robbery is not.
See, this is why I don't have a life of crime.
You've got to read up on the rules. I mean, I say that, but
he's asking you.
I don't. Yeah, but don't ask me. What do I know about it?
I'm clearly having embryonic thoughts of kidnapping.
Embryonic thoughts.
Just so I know.
That's the name of my death metal album.
If I kidnap her and then go over there. Oh, okay, fine. Okay.
Well, let's run a controlled experiment.
Yeah.
I say federal, but at the time there was no Federal Bureau of Investigation. There was only the Bureau of Investigation.
Okay.
It was the no F and the BI.
So they were just all by.
They were just all by.
Okay.
So, on June 10th, 1933, Barrow rolled their car one night in Texas. Barrow was in the car, and Bonnie Parker and also Jones was there. And it was quite a bad crash. Now, it's not really certain the origin, but Bonnie received third-degree burns on her right leg.
Gosh.
Oh. Really bad. In some places it's fire, some places it's battery acid, but whatever.
From a Ford V8.
From a Ford, yeah.
Presumably.
It was so bad, in some places he'd been burned right down to the bone.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So it was very, very bad, yeah.
Do you know what I would have called her after that?
Go on.
Bonnie and Clyde. just to keep things light.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe give it a bit of time.
Just keep it light.
Comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yeah.
It makes the French pronunciation Bernie a little more appropriate.
Bernie. So basically they then had to nurse her injury, and she would forever have trouble walking. So now her and... I say forever.
Sure.
Her and,
for the next 6 months.
Yeah, her and Clyde now both have leg trouble.
Right.
Oh, of course they do, yeah. I've forgotten about old 8 toes Clyde.
Matching leg trouble.
Such are the trials of love.
Yeah, quite.
So come July, with Parker still injured, they rented both the cabins near the Red Crown Tavern in Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
A tavern that just happened to be frequented by highway patrolmen.
Yeah, of course.
But the owner of the restaurant and the cottage, the guy who owned the restaurant and both cottages that they'd rented, was a bit suspicious because firstly they said that they were checking in 3 people, but actually 5 people went in. Mm-hmm. And they put paper up on the windows of the cabins so you couldn't see it. So they thought, hang on, that's a bit weird. So he reported his suspicions to Captain Baxter, who was a patron of the restaurant, the highway patrolman. Meanwhile, there was a drugstore owner in the local town, and he'd had people coming in buying bandages, strangers coming in and buying loads of bandages, obviously to treat Bonnie. And he got a bit suspicious, so he contacted the local sheriff. So now you've got the local sheriff and the highway patrol, both suspicious it's the same group of people. They combine forces and they engage the gang at the cabin. There's another shootout. This time, Buck gets shot in the head. Ooh. He lives, but he's shot in the head. Blanche, his wife, got glass shards in both eyes, and she's blinded, virtually blinded.
Oh, God.
The gang still escaped, but they're not long before they're caught up with again in Iowa, where Buck, ever the misfortunate, he gets shot in the back. He's already got a hole in his head, so he gets shot in the back.
Buck in the back.
He gets Buck was shot in the back.
Yep.
So him and Blanche were arrested, but he died a few days later from his many wounds.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And Blanche is now in custody.
And blinded.
Well, she lost the sight of one eye, I believe, ultimately. They more or less lay low for a little while because obviously they've had a bit of a time of it being chased around. They still do some robberies, but small, low-key. Still low-key, again, like stores.
Of course they do.
They're living, I mean, like Rue said, they're living hand to mouth, so they need money. They never have any money. They're stealing $5 here, $10 there, you know.
It's not like I'm about to embark on my career as a Wild West criminal.
Aren't you, though?
But it's hard to respect someone who just steals $5 and $10. You know, enough money to eat for the next day or two.
Yeah.
Equally, is it enough money to... I mean, it probably is enough money for the shop owner to call the police and stuff, but in certain cases...
It's going to leave such a trail behind. Everyone ringing in saying, I've just had this young fella come in, or this young lady come in, or this couple come in. I
don't think everyone would.
You know,
I don't think everyone would.
No, not everyone.
So
but there'd be enough, I think, of a breadcrumb
of
crimes to know that it's them. And if they're doing it every couple of days, and they're doing a bank every other month.
Yeah.
I mean, on average, 15 banks over 2 years.
I think by this time people know what they look like. So if they walk into your shop, you've probably seen a picture of them.
Yeah. There's probably a poster in the window.
Yeah.
That they took.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then January 1934, there's what's called the Eastern Breakout. So this is the prison that Barrow had been in, that obviously he hated. So they organised an escape. So Hamilton, Methvin and a whole bunch of others were broken out of the prison. Joe Palmer, member of the gang, he shot Joe Crowson, who was part of the Department of Corrections, part of the staff. Mm-hmm. He was shot and killed. So that's another one to add to the tally of victims.
Yep.
So now they've got Methvin with them. Now he's a character that plays a part in the next event that turns popular opinion against the gang, which is on April the 1st, 1934. This is Easter Sunday. There's two patrolmen named Murphy and Wheeler. They approach the gang's car in a town called Grapevine, Texas. They were shot and killed. Now the story was widely reported and hugely exaggerated. Witness accounts are shoddy at best, and most of them are likely sensationalised. But according to Methvin, obviously who was there, Barrow said, "Let's take them."
Let's take them.
Probably meaning kidnap them, because that's what they always like to do. But Methvin at the time, he thought he meant shoot them and open fire.
Yeah.
So Barrow joined in. So basically they killed these two. And that reminds me of the Let Him Have It.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yes.
Yeah,
very
Bentley
much so.
And Craig.
Yeah.
Let him have it, Chris.
Yeah.
As you rightly say, Clyde probably meant take, as in kidnap.
Yeah.
I mean, let's take him. I mean, it's not really a phrase, is it, to shoot someone? But
no.
Well, let's take them out, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, to dinner. I mean, you know.
Let's take them out for a drive round town and tease them before giving them a few dollars for a taxi home.
We'll take the car and drive all night. We'll get drunk.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, anyway, so confusion. So the new gang members' actions turned the tide of public opinion.
Because these two officers were shot, now what's important to remember, or important to know, I should say, about this, is that this was Murphy's first day.
Oh,
and
God, really?
He was just about to get married to his young wife.
His first day on
the job.
Oh, God.
And they'd been killed. And the worst part of it, there were reports that Bonnie Parker was there and that she was the one who shot Murphy dead while he lay injured on the ground.
Okay.
Twice with a shotgun. And laughed and joked about it. Yeah. Now that story is what turned public opinion around completely.
Strangely enough, yeah.
Is that true though?
They died. It's just
the only witness was Methvin, and he didn't say that. He just said that they shot them.
Right.
So he didn't confirm that. That's all they needed. Like I say, the stories that went through the press were hugely exaggerated and sensationalised. But it basically, up until that point, pretty much Bonnie was not thought to have actually killed anybody. But now they've got her standing over an injured man with a young fiancée who's, and then shooting him and laughing about it. Suddenly, the picture of her is now painted, not the romantic young lover. Yeah. Now it's the vicious
executioner,
vicious killer. Yeah. So now a reward for $1,000 goes out.
Wow,
which is
$1,000. That sounds quite a lot.
That's $20,000 in today's money.
Oh, is it? I thought you were going to say more than that. But yeah, all right, still quite a lot.
The important part of that reward is that it wasn't for their arrest or capture. It was for
dead or alive.
It was advertised as a $1,000 reward for the bodies of the Grapevine slayers.
Oh, okay.
Basically, we want them dead.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like a fatwa for anyone to do them in.
Yeah, definitely, exactly.
Wow.
5 days after the reward is offered, a 60-year-old widower, Constable Cal Campbell, he was shot and killed in Commerce, Oklahoma. So now they're not only...
It's really racking up, isn't it?
Yeah, the bodies are racking up, but also, you're now talking about wounded men and old men and...
Yeah.
You're saying they don't matter?
So, quite the opposite. I'm saying that public opinion values them more highly. Okay. So with Cole Campbell shot and killed in Commerce, Oklahoma, they also kidnapped the police chief, Percy Boyd.
That's got to be a mistake, isn't it? If you're kidnapping people for fun, you accidentally pick up the police chief.
A bad choice.
Well, they drive him around. They drive him across to Kansas, where they drop him, and he asked Bonnie if there was anything that she wanted him to say to the press when he was released.
And he said,
and she
"You're not in Kansas anymore."
She said, Tell them I don't smoke cigars.
Yeah. Of all the things to tell the press, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what she cared about her.
She was alive now, she'd have an Instagram account, for sure.
Oh, yeah. We've littered with selfies.
Yeah.
But all she ever wanted was to be famous. This brings us now back down to May 23rd, where we started our story on the rural highway in Louisiana. Now, among the posse waiting for the car on the road was a man named Ted Hinton, who was a deputy from the Texas Police Department. But he had already met Bonnie Parker years before because he was a regular patron of the restaurant where she was a waitress.
Brilliant.
Right.
And that's not the only serendipitous moment in the story, because after the killing on the highway, Dillard Darby, who was kidnapped with his fiancée, the Undertaker, he assisted at the embalming. So Bonnie Parker said she'll be working on me sometime soon. She was not wrong.
Yeah.
She was not wrong. He actually did work. He did work
it
on
all
me.
comes full circle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there literally a waiting party?
There were 5 men waiting
by the road,
hidden in the bushes by the side of the road,
knowing that they were gonna, or just randomly going, "Oh, should we just sit here?"
Well, again, they knew they were in the area. They set up a trap.
They knew what car they were driving.
Yeah. So the idea was that they would wait and then they would expect them to come by because they were going to go and see a relative. So they managed to get Methvin's dad to park his truck at the side of the road, thinking that they would come and slow down and stop and talk to him.
Oh.
Yep.
He's a brave man.
Yeah.
Because they could have kidnapped him and drove around with him. Or just shot him and taken $5 from him.
Yeah. So the idea was they thought he'll stop and then they'll be parked right next to where we are. And then we can get him.
Get him. Yeah.
But they they opened fire while the car was still moving. So it looked like apparently it was slowed down. But one of them, a man named Oakley, he jumped up and started firing before any order had gone out. So he just started shooting.
Just got a bit too excited.
They were coming down the road.
Yeah.
And someone forget it. Let's just get on with it. Right.
Yeah. Get her.
Okay. Yeah,
Get her.
To be fair, there was probably a lot of pent-up anger.
Yeah.
From
and
the
fear
police
as well, I should think.
Yeah. And $1,000 reward.
That's true. Yeah.
Potentially. So they leapt up. They fired their 130 to 160 bullets into the
car.
In their path. 112 bullet holes were counted in the car.
Wow.
You have to imagine that not all of them hit the car.
Yeah, and again, they're using Thompsons, so they're going to be machine gun. They'll be firing all over the place. So yeah, lots of rapid fire from submachine guns, and then some pistols and some shotguns as well. So the coroner listed 17 wounds on Barrow and 26 on Parker. That's how many times they were killed, and almost any one of them would have been fatal.
Let's be clear.
That's how many
you
times
can only
they were
be killed once. Unless it's a zombie movie,
she was
you can be killed
26
twice.
times.
Yeah, they were killed 26 times in quick succession.
Wow.
Actually, that's a film I'd like to see. Bonnie and Clyde and zombies.
So that final scene of the late 60s Bonnie and Clyde film was pretty spot on, basically, wasn't it? A hail of bullets.
Yes, except that in the movie, Warren Beatty's not in the car; he gets out, which didn't happen. And Bonnie Parker was sitting in the other side of the car. But other than that,
I'm talking about the hail of bullets.
The hail of bullets is absolutely true. Yes.
What else is a collective noun? A hail. It's a hail of bullets.
A hail of Marys.
Yeah, hail of Marys. That's what they would have been saying.
How many bullets makes a hail of bullets?
Well, exactly.
Is 8 a hail?
A hail's a lot, I'd say.
Yeah, a lot of bullets.
26, probably. She was killed 26 times.
26 times.
25.
That was her, wasn't it? It was her who got hit 26 times.
That was her. 26 times.
25.
And 17 for him.
25.
In fact, so when the bodies went to be embalmed by
the bloke who was kidnapped.
Yeah, well, he assisted. The man doing the embalming was named Boots Bailey.
Yeah, very good.
He struggled. He needed assistance because he struggled because the embalming fluid kept coming out of the bullet holes.
Right, yeah, of course. Yeah.
In like some sort of comedic...
Fred Quimby cartoon.
It just dribbled out, yeah.
It's dribbled out of the hole.
Wow.
That's all, folks.
Has anyone got any corks?
So, of course, word gets out that this ambush has taken place and that Bonnie and Clyde are dead.
Yep.
So a big crowd gathers at the roadside to see what's going on.
Yes, I've seen a picture of that as well, actually.
Yeah.
That was photographed. It's quite interesting.
But, of course, these people, they want to see the bodies. They want to see the story, but they also want souvenirs. So,
do they?
busy hands are trying to take whatever they can. Someone...
Really?
Yeah. Someone cut some hair, bloodied hair from Bonnie Parker's head. There was a man tried to cut off Clyde's ear, and another that tried to take one of his fingers.
Cut
his
off
trigger
his
finger.
ear?
What?
Yeah, they tried to. It was stopped by the police.
Someone's taken 2 of his toes. That was done before. There's a shot of like hundreds of people crowded round. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's not like taped off,
all like
crime
leaning
scene.
in and stuff.
Yeah.
No.
It's quite macabre. Having everyone just leaning into the car and sort of grasping at the body. Yeah. And then suddenly everyone from all over the country started to swarm the town. It went from 2,000 population to 12,000 in a matter of hours. People coming to see it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
As with all these artifacts and trophies through history, I imagine there is more locks of bloodied hair available than would cover a single head.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You could probably make a dozen Bonnies out of the amount of hair that's available.
Oh right, yeah, of all the so-called mementos.
I thought they only came in boxes of 10.
Speaking of mementos, if you really want, you can go and see the bullet-riddled car.
Yes.
Which is on display somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a casino in Nevada.
That's amazing that it still exists. I'm glad it does, but it's pretty cool though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in a glass panelled enclosure.
Yeah, it's called Whiskey Pete's. The
Whiskey Pete's
casino.
Of course it is.
Great name.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. So the posse, the 5 men who were gunning for the $1,000 reward.
Hey.
Oh yes. I wonder if I bet they weren't thinking about that. They were just thinking about
staying alive,
killing them. But,
staying alive. Yeah.
I imagine they were probably. I mean, I certainly would be quite scared. You're going to come up against some outlaws that you know who have no fear in just taking other people out, policemen and bystanders.
Mainly your colleagues. Did they divide it 5 ways?
Oddly enough, the people who put up the reward pulled out and didn't pay.
I think at the point of death, it's too late to pull out of a contract.
It is a bit.
Well, yeah.
I would say their motives were not money, it was revenge anyway, but even so, it's a bit of a shame.
They were given $200, which is no small potatoes.
No, that's fine, isn't it?
And they were told they could take whatever they want from the car.
Oh.
So they just...
Like what?
Well, the leader of the posse took all the guns and ammunition, of which there was a lot.
Okay.
Someone took a box of fishing tackle.
Great.
Clyde's saxophone was in the car. He'd lost his guitar in a raid earlier on, but he still had his sax. And one of the members took that, but he returned it to the family a few years later.
So they didn't really get anything from there.
No,
and arguably
really.
Shouldn't have had.
Yeah.
The gas station where Frank Hamer called it in is still there.
Is it really?
Oh right, yeah.
Where he called it in to say, Bonnie and Clyde have been are no more. I can't remember what the wording was that he used in the call now. But that gas station is still there, and you can go and visit it. It's funny. That little village is. Despite the fame that the crime and the criminals seem to have following them, the town is a little bit of. My love goes out to the people of the town. It is a bit of a nothing. It is. I mean, it's kind of. It reminds me of the kind of towns that the cartoonist Robert Crumb used to draw, where there's a lot of space between the buildings and the paving stones are cracked and full of grass growing up.
Well, they wanted to be buried together, but they were not.
Good.
Clyde is actually buried with his brother, Buck, in Dallas, and Parker is buried in another cemetery in Dallas. So, culture then.
Culture.
So we've already mentioned some of the songs, Serge, Gainsbourg and Brigitte Bardot in 1967, and Georgie Fame, 1967.
Yeah, 1967. Yeah, there's the Netflix film.
It does look good.
It's all right. It's all right. The one bit that I really did like about it, it's kind of a bit gentle rolling most of the way through, but the bit because it's about the investigation and the chase and the capture. Bonnie and Clyde don't really feature in it at all. Not even their crimes.
Yeah.
You don't even see any of their crimes. You don't see any of the shootouts. You just hear about them. And it ends with the posse shootout on the road where they die.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it ends kind of a few minutes after that in an epilogue, but and that the bit that I liked the most is that shootout is done in the least romantic, the least heroic, almost maudlin kind of mode. It's very kind of almost tragic, but not in a kind of sympathetic way. It's just,
Meaning what? Whereas the film was the opposite.
It's not at all glamorised.
Actual Bonnie and
it's
Clyde
not at all
film.
glamorised. It's
because Bonnie and Clyde film, it was.
Yeah,
I seem to remember it's really good, but I seem to remember because that was the first time I saw it. I it's such a shame that they died. But Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway were super cool.
Of course, yeah.
So you kind of like, as it's a Hollywood film, but
but that's the movie that arguably popularised Bonnie and Clyde across the Atlantic, because they would have been heard of in the US, but not so much in Europe. So that movie kind of brought it to everyone else's awareness, their story.
Right.
But it's a very romanticised story.
Sure.
Also, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway were not 23 and 24.
How I know, yeah.
At least Edward Bosser and Emily Brobst are in their 20s in the film, in The Highwayman.
Yeah.
So they do look very young, which again, seeing two very young people relatively quietly just gunned down.
You barely see them.
The
two actors that play those roles, you really barely see them. You see them. I mean, they could have been cast for people who can play dead really well.
Yeah,
because that's pretty much all they do. Because they're groped and mauled at the very end in the epilogue, quite sadly.
Someday they'll go down together. They'll bury them side by side. To few it'll be grief, to the law or a leaf. But it's death for Bonnie and Clyde.
That's all for this time. If you want to know more about what we've discussed over the course of this episode, just Google it or something. You can see daily true crime updates on our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. You can email us, or you can support the show with a PayPal donation. And links to all of those are on our website at truecrimediary.co.uk. Don't forget to send us a review or post one in your podcast service if you can, and all 5-star reviews will get a shout out on a future episode. Join us next time when we'll be similarly discussing and digressing on another event in true crime history. Until then, my thanks to Jed and Rue. My name's Mark, and we'll see you on the next date in our True Crime Diary.